Hi, Bashar. My name is Cheryl. I live in Cheyenne, Wyoming. I was on a camping trip near Tucson, Arizona, and about 3 a.m. I saw a very unusual phenomenon. It was like slow flash bulbs appearing in different portions of the sky, and they were quite large, and from my perspective, they were a little bit smaller than the size of the moon. During the next night of camping, I decided to see if I could see this phenomenon again, and I saw a very unusual bright light. And then outside of it, a smaller light blinked and then orbited around this bright light. This happened several more times over the course of an hour. And then all of a sudden, those unusual lights faded away, and I saw nothing but normal stars. And then all of a sudden, those stars faded away, and I noticed that the sky was actually covered with clouds. I am absolutely astonished. I am certain that I was awake, and I was wondering if you could give me your perspective. Thanks so much, Bashar. Bye.
As many people on your planet expand their consciousness, they will begin to peer into other dimensionalities, or their senses will become more sensitized to the comings and goings of dimensional portals and other kinds of crafts that may come through them as they pass through your reality. Or you will be more sensitive to the different variations and expressions of energy that your planet gives off, seeing different portals and vortices that exist in your atmosphere. So this may be a multitude of things impinging upon your senses, seeing more multidimensionally, and being able to experience energies that express themselves that were invisible to you before.
Good day, Bashar. I'm very happy to be with you at this moment. Very exciting.
It is our passion and our pleasure to interact with you as well.
Thank you. I loved listening to you about the concept of gods. And, I'm reflecting to myself, it took me about 25 years to relieve myself from the concept of God, of religion, religious, and become free to be who I am, and I am God.
Yes, everyone is.
Yes. So I wonder, in our civilization, how far as a collective are we from freeing ourselves to become the free that we should be?
Well, again, please do remember that you keep shifting collectives. You never change the world you're on. You never change the collective you're in at any given moment. You change yourself and you shift to a different version of Earth that already simultaneously exists, that contains a different collective that already believes more in the direction that you prefer. So by speaking about this in a linear way, as if it would appear that your world is changing, overall, as a general idea, not precise, general idea, over the course of the next half century, the next 50 of your years, for the most part, we'll see the greatest shift and you will be experiencing the greatest change. But again, it's simply because you've shifted to a version of Earth that is already that way.
Yeah. As a collective, I wonder, while you say it, each of us shift into a new reality that we are aligned with.
Yes.
So does that matter as a collective, if we shift as a collective, or does it only go by individual shifts to a collective?
Both. Collectives can shift. There can be consensus agreement among many different individuals to shift in the same way, to the same level, the same frequency. So, yes.
Well, that's good news. 50 years is not bad.
No, not at all. Yeah. A blink of an eye. But again, individuals, to some degree, can sometimes shift more quickly than the collective. It just depends.
It depends by what? By how much of it I shifted?
Yes, and also whether you chose to be an example of the shift that can allow others to see you as a living example that they can shift too. So, in other words, there have to be some that are out in front to be able to act as examples for the rest to know they can shift as well.
Yeah, I got you. I understand it. Thank you.
Right. You're welcome.
So I live outside of the city, and we have a beautiful forest that I walk on the path. And since the last transmission that you spoke about the shells of around us,
yes,
When I walk, there's a certain area that I feel strongly the elementals
Yes.
present there. So since that transmission occurred, I become more aware, meaning I tuned in more. So each time I go to that location, I send my thought to them, and sometimes verbally I'll say hello, sometimes mentally I'll say hello.
Yeah.
It's funny enough that the first day that after listening to you, walking down there at a large tree, we have a very old trees in that location, shifted, and the crackling of wood sounded. And I
Yeah.
was like, I accepted it as if a communication happened.
It was.
But then it was there because it didn't happen after that again.
That's all right. These things will fluctuate. It's all right. Still a communication.
Is it?
Yes.
I would love that. You said when you say communication, for me, it's a communication probably in a limited way of a human communicating.
There is information in that experience. You as a human may interpret it in different ways, and you may process it to the point where the information becomes understandable at a different time. That doesn't mean it wasn't a communication. You may not know it immediately, but you will eventually understand how the communication relates to you and how to relate to it.
So you also mentioned that to do it in meditation and all of that, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like maybe I'm impatient.
Why? Does that mean you think there's a better place to be than where you are?
No, actually, I'm very good with where I'm at.
Except when you're impatient.
Yeah, the impatient is like, okay, I'm here. I recognize you. You're in this location. You are in everywhere, but in this location, I feel you.
Right.
So I would like this.
So you have insistence.
I do, obviously. Thank you. Yeah.
Let it unfold in the way that it naturally unfolds. You have to trust that it will unfold perfectly for you. If you insist, you're actually shortchanging yourself from the perfect way it could unfold.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. And by insisting, you actually make yourself incapable of hearing other forms of communication that might be coming to you.
I needed to repeat this. What did you just say to me?
By insisting on hearing the communication or having an experience in one particular way, that insistence can actually prevent you from receiving other forms of communication that might be coming to you. You won't perceive them if you insist on a particular outcome because you don't know that that's the best outcome.
I so agree.
So you might actually miss forms of communication that would be coming to you if you insist on a particular outcome, because that may not be what works best for you.
And the only way to be open to it is not to insist and just allow.
Well, again, if you understand that your insistence is a limitation you're placing on yourself, why would you do it?
No, you're good. You're right. You're right.
I know.
Okay, thank you.
Again, it is our passion and our pleasure. Have a good day.
Thank you, Bashar. Bye.
Good day.
Hi, Bashar. How are you? So I really appreciate the fact that the messages that you've been giving us have a sense of practicalness, concreteness, and consistency in it. And I think that there should be people out there that should treat these materials coming from the invisible world, the world that's beyond our senses, such as from near-death experiencers or from authentic channel beings such as yourself, to treat this information and materials as more than just philosophy, but with a more grounded practicalness. So my question to you is, if we are to study this information as a subject matter, for example, the mechanism that you described about the higher mind and physical mind interaction, things like that, how can we study it? What kind of methodology we can use? Yeah, so that's my question. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. Goodbye.
Remember that first and foremost, we do say that the formula we give you is not a philosophy. It is literally a description of the mechanics, the practical mechanics energetically in consciousness of how you actually create the manifestation of your physical reality experience. So we would suggest that you begin with that. A complete understanding of the instruction manual that describes the structure, nature, and mechanics of how you use consciousness to create your physical reality experience will inform you about any other practical way to relate to any philosophical or metaphysical concept, because you will already understand the basics as a framework against which to compare and examine any other philosophical and metaphysical concept to see how it relates to that physical, mechanical, practical framework. And the things that don't match it, that don't fit in that framework, you can understand as mythological chaff, so to speak, as a misunderstanding or an outdated definition that simply isn't really representative of the actual mechanics of your consciousness. This is coming in the near future, given by the channel as the unified theory of metaphysics, providing a framework to understand metaphysical concepts as the physics of consciousness. Therefore, when you understand it all as the physics of consciousness, then you will understand how it practically applies to the creation of your physical reality.
Hi.
Good day.
Hi, Bashar.
Good day.
Good day. Bashar, can I ask you, first thing is, are we still in the eye of the needle?
Yes. As I said, this will progress all the way into and through 2023 to prepare you for letting go of things that you don't need anymore, to streamline yourselves so that you can be more yourself and pass more easily through that particular energy tunnel, and prepare yourself for the beginning of the window of open contact. So yes.
Okay. So it's good to know, because it seems like this year has been even more challenging.
Yes.
At least
Well,
personally.
you're in the
and-
center of it.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess just keep letting go.
Yes. Keep examining yourself, keep investigating with honesty, know yourself, let go of those things that truly are vibrationally not compatible with you, that don't serve you. Be yourself more. Follow the formula more precisely, more often. That will accelerate you. That will prepare you.
Okay. And then, Bashar, I have a question. So I can do that. And how do I shift timelines to match the one that I prefer?
You're doing it all the time. Follow the formula. The formula is the rudder that you use to navigate yourself as you constantly shift billions of times per second through different versions of Earth. And with your hand firmly on the rudder, by following the formula and acting it out as precisely as possible, you are steering yourself in the direction of more and more versions of Earth that are more and more reflective of the vibration that you prefer. So you're already shifting. You don't have to learn to shift. You have to learn to steer. And the way you learn to steer is by following the formula and making it first nature to do so.
Got it. I just came back from Guam like a week ago, and it's been kind of challenging to adjust back, and I'm not sure why. Is it?
Well, because you are expanding yourself and not coming back as the self you were. You're coming back as a different self. And therefore, you have to take on the things that are now relevant for the different you, not attempt to incorporate the things that are no longer you.
Got it.
Does that help?
Yeah.
All right. Happy
Thanks,
shifting.
Bashar.
Happy shifting.
Hello, Bashar. Good day to you. Aaron from Germany here. I've noticed that in the current stage of the Eye of the Needle experience, we are actually shifting to a whole new way of creating our experience of dream to reality. Permission slips literally stop working overnight. And I've noticed that particularly the process of wondering, the frequency of wonder, is coming online as a very simple yet absolutely powerful tool to create your preferred reality and preferred experiences. I was wondering if you could shed some light on the process of wondering and the frequency of wonder from your perspective. Thank you very much. Bye.
The frequency of wonder is the frequency of the soul, the frequency of curiosity and wonderment, amazement and beauty, is coming directly from your connection to your own soul, expressing more of the soul vibration through you physically. The idea of the change in permission slips is usually an indication of this, that you are accelerating, that you are not holding on to anything that doesn't serve you and letting it go very rapidly, that you will ultimately realize you are the permission slip, the primary one that makes the decisions about what changes to make within yourself. So this is a sign usually of an acceleration and a connection more strongly to the idea of bringing more of your soul's energy through your physical form.
Hello, Bashar.
Good day.
I'm really grateful for the chance to talk to you today.
It is our deepest appreciation to experience the co-creation of this interaction.
So, my mom committed suicide a few weeks ago.
All right.
And it's brought up a lot of questions for me about your teachings that I'd like to explore.
By all means.
So everyone tells me that there's nothing I could have done or been differently in order to help, and that it wasn't anything that I was doing that led to the creation of that manifestation.
Yes, well, you made an agreement. You made an agreement with each other that this might be likely to happen. But again, it's not that it had to, but certainly you are not to be blamed for anything because other people make choices.
It's that I see a lot of parallels between it and my process and my thinking and my experience. Like, I held the idea of her intention for the last few years, and she seemed to be held in suffering during that time. Yeah. And then literally like 2 days after I decided I was ready to open my heart and start to forgive her and look for a new relationship, she killed herself.
Well, now you have one. Now you have the relationship. By opening your heart, it let her know she could move on and develop a relationship with you from a higher plane. She will still make choices to allow her in some way, shape, or form to finish whatever it is she may not have completed in terms of the choices that she made, in terms of the reasons why she may have chosen that. In exploring her life review, she may realize at some point she may have to experience certain challenges that are similar again in order to go towards completeness because she made a commitment to do so. Nevertheless, the choice to transition into spirit at that time can be of great assistance to you by allowing you to develop a relationship with her higher self. By stretching to make a connection, you stretch towards spirit, and that can help you, in a loving way, learn more about your spiritual connections as well. So please do understand that the relationship still exists. And now she is free from whatever it is she may have been experiencing that made that seem like the only choice. She will use it to her advantage, but for right now, her focus is on making sure you use the experience to your advantage to become more of who you are, knowing that she now, from that position, loves you unconditionally and is free from all pain and suffering.
And I've had pretty good clarity on that. I've honestly experienced this as the deepest healing process of my life. It has been transforming me.
Yes.
And I think the only thing that keeps me looking backwards is this idea of responsibility. And was it, did I hold her in pain? And is it because of my process that her journey went this way?
No. She is capable of making her own decisions.
So in that vein, since we're constantly navigating different realities billions of times a second, I'm also wondering, why did I find myself in the one where this happened instead of one where she would seem to stick around longer or her life experience could play out differently?
Because of what it's going to teach you that you felt was important for you to learn. You haven't really learned it completely yet. So you're asking about an agreement you made that hasn't played completely out yet.
So I understand how it could be the perfect reflection for me and like for my process.
Yes.
But then I wonder,
Yes.
so yes, you're talking about her and how she's doing fine in spirit and she made her choice.
Yes.
But since we're continuously creating our experience of others out of different, distinct, parallel reality versions of them,
Yes.
who was I in relationship with? And which version of her will I be connected with in spirit?
A different version, a greater self. More of who she actually is as a reflection of the infinite.
I guess
So whatever it is you need is what you will connect to in her.
Yeah. Sorry for kind of nervously talking over you.
No, that's all right.
So I guess I'm wondering about whether or not she's real in and of herself, or
Yes, of course she is. That doesn't mean you're not creating your version of it.
so if she has her own reality, how can it be that there are some where she doesn't do this and some where she does do this?
Because you're talking about a much higher level of the being that can experience many different things simultaneously. Right now, you're focused on what you understand as the spirit individual that represented your mother. That's the level that we're addressing right now. But on a much greater level, remembering that you are all that is, you can experience everything and anything simultaneously. It just depends on what level of the consciousness you're referring to when you talk about forming a relationship with it.
But she does have her own experience and her own choices, and she's not just a character on my screen or something.
No, you didn't make her up. The idea is everyone is a fundamental existing being, but you still create your version as an interface to relate to. That's like saying, you understand when you have a telephone conversation with a friend, you're not actually hearing their real voice? You're hearing a recreation electronically that sounds like them, but they have their own voice. It's just converted into electronic signals that are reconstituted into audio signals at your end. So it's like that. You're creating your version that you can relate to, even though she has her own reality, just as she creates her version of you, even though you have your own reality. Just like the telephone recreates the voice that isn't the original voice, but it's representative of something that is real.
Yeah, so my whole life I've been recreating her out of many possible variants to create the experience I've needed of her.
Yes, exactly. As she has done with you.
But then in spirit, where we are connected in a continuous relationship is on a higher level of like all my possibilities, all her possibilities.
Well, yes, those that are relevant for whatever level you happen to be exploring, yes.
So then would it be that like when I'm in spirit, it's kind of like my oversoul is, because sometimes you've said that when we lose someone, they don't really miss us because they're already with us in spirit. And is that like an oversoul and an oversoul together?
Well, no, it's more like the higher mind. The oversoul is something even higher. But the idea is, again, it is a more direct connection with the reality of the being. Remember that physical reality is a projection of consciousness. It's a dream. That's why you kind of have to create your version in the way that you do. Now, you're still creating your version even in spirit, but it's a closer connection to the reality of the person, the reality of the being. There's less in the way. There's less you have to recreate.
I think there's a lot I'll have to listen back to, and I might not fully understand all of this.
That's all right.
I think what's been important to me is to understand that she exists in her own right and that I didn't make this in some tragic way where it was my fault.
No, it's not your fault.
One of the thoughts that kept recurring was like that if I had had more space in my heart for her sooner, there would have been space in my world for her.
Yes, but you see, the idea of opening your heart is the point, and it didn't have to result in the idea of her choosing to stay. In fact, the idea of the opening of your heart continues in the relationship that you will be forming with her as she is now. That's the point.
Yeah, and that's what I'm reaching for, is the ability to relax into this and receive all the gifts that it offers without holding myself in blame and guilt.
Exactly. So her transition into spirit gives you a wonderful opportunity to accelerate the process of opening your heart and being more of yourself.
It's happening.
Yes. And therefore it was a very loving thing for her to do. And this was done by arrangement and agreement between the two of you.
Wonderful to connect with you. Thank you for helping me today.
And you as well. It is our passion and our pleasure to do so. Good day.
Good day.
Hello, dear Bashar. Hello, dear Sirius. Thank you for this opportunity to interact with the 13, as it is my wish to find myself in a timeline when the 13 return to Earth and retrieve the 13 crystal skulls and unite them. And thank you, dear Morning Star. Thank you, dear Merkaba Morning Star, for being the embodiment of this unification of the heaven-earth co-creation. Thank you.
Aveo. There is nothing I really need to add to this except again to say that the only way to navigate to that is to follow the formula.
Good day, Bashar. How are you?
Perfect, and you?
I'm wonderful, thank you.
All right.
So the fun thing about this timing is, I think it was last year, November, we spoke. And when I was talking to you, I had a bald eagle that showed up.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, I had a bald eagle show up yesterday in San Diego. And I thought that was very auspicious. And then I'm now in Maui celebrating a birthday gift to myself, and a conversation I had with a friend, Koa. He brought up the star Altair, and it felt very reverent, or very significant. I should say I had reverence for the conversation, but significant to bring up to you. Do you have anything you want to share about that star?
Altair can be representative of higher frequencies, of soaring on a higher level, of connecting more strongly with the higher mind.
Ooh, can you say a little bit more about that?
In understanding that when you decide to have what you call a physical incarnational experience, there is always the higher mind that is non-physical that still exists in the spirit level simultaneously. Now, the higher mind and physical mind can decide, in a sense, together, when you arrange or set up the idea of the physical experience, exactly how much energy you will allot from the non-physical to the physical realm. Will you allow it to be a 50-50 partnership proposition? Will you allow the physical mind to experience less than 50% or more than 50% of the energy that you are in total? The vibration that you're referring to as the energy of Altair allows for the incorporation of more energy overall, a sharing of the energy in a more balanced way between the higher and physical minds, so that you can experience things in the way sometimes that the higher mind experiences them from the broader point of view. The vibration of Altair, therefore, is symbolic of the idea of a true partnership on a higher level and a balance point that allows you to grow and expand in a very balanced way, experiencing more of what the higher mind experiences while you are still physical, and therefore allowing you to experience both the attributes of spirit and the attributes of physical reality, similar in the way to our civilization being quasi-physical and having the traits of spirit and the traits of physical beings simultaneously.
That's perfect. So the thing that I actually really wanted to talk to you about is the experiences I'm having where I feel like I'm dreaming in my wake state, and everything
You
very
are.
malleable. And it feels like lucid dreaming, where there's awareness that I'm dreaming, but able to shift and change things.
Yes, and that is also the vibration specifically of the symbol of Altair, is the concept of achieving lucidity.
And so that brings me to I have such appreciation for you and your teachings, especially the formula, the amount of synchronicity and it feels like magic in my life from following my highest excitement this trip specifically. And so the idea of the lucidity in my waking state, seeing things before they happen, getting things manifesting what almost feels like out of thin air, is occurring in weird ways, and small things and big things, and just the signs and symbols that keep coming up. So the eagles and the hawks and the crows continue to be a fun symbol.
Yes, well, this is the new normal on your planet.
Perfect. That's perfect. And the only other thing I want to mention is the idea of symbols. When we spoke the last time, you had mentioned about the birds and my connection, and to give them the meaning, the symbols that were meaningful to me. And so I just love the synchronicity of the conversation of Altair. And is there any symbol with eagles specifically? There was an eagle that came to me in a vision that I didn't know was a real thing, the Batalor eagle. It's a tricolored eagle, and that keeps coming up. Is there anything that you want to add about that?
You can investigate some of the indigenous understanding of the reference and symbol of what the eagle represents to the American Indian.
Okay. Thank you, Bashar. Good day. I appreciate you.
Good day.
Hi, Bashar. My name is River. I'm coming to you from Temecula, California. I would love to ask about these different archetypes that I've been getting in plant medicine journeys recently. And it's the same archetypes over and over again. One is Santa Fe, and the element of like dry desert, sand, and just like a lot of smoke, and the archetype of a pregnant woman with brown skin. And another archetype that's been coming up has been ayahuasca, and specifically like the snake in the rainforest. Very much a lot of humidity and water and earth, and then lastly, another archetype of sailing a ship, being a sailor, the captain of a ship, and feeling the waves and the rocking of the water of the sea. And I was just wondering if you could shine some light, your perspective on these archetypes. And typically I've noticed that I'm more of a male character as a sailor, and then for ayahuasca, that archetype is more woman and snake kind of energy. So anything you had to say about that, I would love to hear. Thank you.
This is actually a number of different things all mixed together. First of all, some of this is what you refer to typically in linear terms as memories of other lives. Now, again, everything exists simultaneously, but you make energetic connections to other beings that exist, whether you think of them as the past or the future, doesn't matter. Everything exists in the present. But linearly speaking, you usually call these things past life memories. So the idea of the sailing on the ocean and so on and so forth is more in that direction of connecting your energy to beings that are sailors and merchants and traders, exchanging goods and information across vast oceans as a symbolic archetypal representation of the exchange of information between different levels of your consciousness in order to make stronger connections and stronger bonds to integrate yourself more fully. The idea of the ayahuasca and the teachers of the earth and the idea of the Southwest is more a representation of connections to indigenous American Indian experiences and shamanistic experiences also in South American jungles. The idea being also that you're attempting to integrate and balance the masculine and feminine energies within yourself. And the snake represents the idea of ancient wisdom that makes you pregnant with new ideas to bring forth a new you. So the idea of the polarization of the dry desert sands and the lush humidity of the jungles is also what you're exploring and bringing into integration, are those ideas of what may seem to be opposites, and yet they all come from the same basic central source. So all of this has to do with interconnection, forming stronger bonds between different aspects of your consciousness, the physical mind, the higher mind, the polarization of different experiences and environments that you're connecting to that allow you for stronger integration within yourself of many different aspects that will allow yourself to be born anew as a new person. So you have many different symbols here archetypally to help you understand the integration going on in your journey right now.
Hello, Bashar.
Good day. Good day.
I have a few questions about emotions in the home. And the first one is, how come our emotions are displayed more intensely and deeply in the home and family rather than at work or socially?
Because in the home, you have the ability to understand where the emotions come from and go through whatever process you need on a personal level to allow your belief systems to be sorted out and to be chosen based on what you prefer. Whereas when you are in a working situation, the idea then is to bring what you've learned about being who you are and applying it to a team effort, so to speak, rather than working on the idea in a more personal and private way when you have the time to do so. So one is inner work, and one is the result of the inner work going into outer work.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I relate to that. Thank you.
Yes.
And so when we're triggered emotionally in the home, it can look like we regress to the age maybe that possible trauma happened. Is that what happens? Because, you know, you can just get like childlike sometimes, whether it's you or your partner or...
Yes, you take on the vibration. You don't have to take on the vibration of the timing of the occurrence. But again, the idea is to allow yourself to understand how you can benefit from what you experienced and how you can become a different person that no longer has that history.
And sometimes it's harder than others. So is that just practice? Like you see the same kind of pattern happening again. Is that just practice of mindfulness and just growth?
Yes. But again, it can be an indication of what kind of beliefs you're specifically holding on to that don't necessarily allow you to move forward. So remember, there's no such thing as an inherently difficult situation. Only the belief makes it seem difficult. And if you understand how beliefs work and how they do that to perpetuate themselves, speaking of negative beliefs, then that's something to understand more clearly as well. Because sometimes it may not even be that you really have that much left to work on, but the negative belief may not want you to let it go, and therefore it may make it seem that there's more there than meets the eye.
So it can just go and repeat until you kind of understand that, get that at a deeper level.
Exactly, because that's one of the tricks of the negative belief, is making you think that, well, this is going to happen again, and well, this is going to happen again, and well, this is going to happen again, and well, this is going to happen again. And that just keeps you in a loop that doesn't really allow you to realize you may have actually already dealt with this. It's the last vestige. It's one of the tricks that represents the last vestige of a negative belief attempting to prevent you from letting it go. That's just how negative beliefs perpetuate themselves. So there may be nothing left to really look at, but the negative belief may convince you that you'll keep revisiting this.
Yeah, tricky.
Yes, very. So when you understand how negative beliefs work, you'll start to see through the smoke and mirrors. Now, if there is truly something for you to deal with, then you'll find that too. But pay attention to the fact that negative beliefs may be giving you empty threats when there's nothing to resolve anymore.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. It's really helpful.
You're welcome.
And so our family ancestors, their unresolved emotional issues, do they get passed down until someone in the family lineage evolves them? Like their negative beliefs, say my great-grandmother's negative belief, if she never transformed that, that's going to be somewhere in me and coming through?
Possibly. It depends on the agreements that you have made in your relationship to the idea of your family. Now, other people will also, in some way, shape, or form, on some level, continue to also resolve those things in their own way, on their own path. But yes, you may have agreed to play a part in helping to resolve that issue for the family. It just depends on your agreements.
Okay. And the home, is the home, the vibration of the home, is it a reflection of our higher selves? You know how like your ships can be a reflection of your higher self. Do our homes have a similar vibration for us?
Well, they can, but usually on your planet at this point and for some time, they've been more a reflection of the agreements that you've made with each other as a soul family.
Okay, and with those agreements as a soul family, when we do resolve them, and somewhat, you know, embrace the differences rather than make them wrong or try and make them a different way,
then you tap into the possibility of the home becoming the higher mind.
That's what I thought. Okay, that's what I was about to ask. That's the idea, is not to have a fake existence in the home, but it's to get to a point of complete peace around each other, because it does feel more intense in the home than anywhere else.
Well, yes, because that's where you've agreed to work on these things with each other. Because it's
Okay,
more
that
intimate,
makes
it's more
sense.
personal.
And then when we, as a collective family, whether we're conscious of it or not, but we're at peace with each other, that creates a vibration that can, I don't know, can it create a vibration where we can connect deeper to our ancestors or to beings like yourself because of that?
Of
Yeah,
course.
okay, great.
As you raise your frequency in any way, shape, or form, by resolving an issue, by following your passion, by clearing yourself out of things that are not vibrationally compatible with you, you raise your frequency. And as you raise your frequency, you make yourself become a better antenna for higher frequency information and experiences and connections.
So if a family can become at that vibration, then together we can all be that for each other.
Yes, of course. That's what you actually are for each other, whether you know it or not. It's just that because you have made certain agreements to process through certain things so you can discover, who am I in this situation? Who am I facing this challenge? Who am I in that circumstance? You're reflecting to each other what you've agreed you need to know for your own expansion, self-discovery, and growth.
Yeah, so as well as like my brother sometimes could be reflecting a part of my own unconscious that I'm not yet strong enough to see. So I see it in him.
Yes.
And then I can take it. Yeah. Okay.
It can be that. It can be that. It doesn't always have to be, but it can be that. You have to pay attention and have discernment to decide what's going on.
Okay.
And that just takes honest self-investigation. Yes. Just takes honest
and
self-investigation.
a lot of patience.
No, takes no patience at all. None whatsoever. The only reason you need patience is because you become impatient with what's going on in the moment. If you live fully in the moment, you are completely engaged. There's nothing better that you think is coming along, and therefore you will not be impatient because you do not require patience to be in the moment.
I am choosing to believe that. So it's my negative belief that would say, or anyone's that would say it's somewhat more challenging to do it in the home or family, or that's because I've made the contracts with those people.
Yes.
So there's a different vibration.
Of course there's a different vibration. But again, it can be challenging, but challenges do not have to be a struggle.
Good. Another great point, Bashar.
Thank you.
Another great point. You're welcome. Okay, well, that's my questions. Thank you so much.
Aveo.
Yeah, unconditional love.
And to you as well.
Thank you.
Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
So it's written that in the beginning was the one, and there was nothing other than the one. Is that true?
Yes, but there's no beginning. That's a concept that happens within the one. The one is not subject to beginnings and endings. It is just existence itself. It just is.
Okay. And why does God let the worst crimes happen on earth without using his or her power to stop it?
You must understand that question is extremely outdated in terms of the perspective of what God is all about. Everything is made of God. Everything is made from God. Everything is God. There are no exceptions. God is not outside controlling things. The idea is that if God, all that is everything, it doesn't exert its will on anything. Everything that happens is part of God. So there's no idea of controlling it. Everything just is an experience of God, by God, in God, from God. Everything can be learned from. Everything can be used in a positive way if you are willing to use it that way. The questions and the way you're asking cause much confusion and misunderstanding on your planet by asking questions that are human-based questions from a human perspective. God does not function in the way you are asking the question.
Is there good and evil? And is evil the same as negative? Or how can you help us understand that?
From our perspective, again, it's not a value judgment. It is simply a recognition that there are positive, negative, and neutral situations, mechanically speaking. Negative is that which causes the experience of segregation, separation, diminishment, disconnection. That doesn't mean you actually are disconnected, but it can create an experience of disconnection. Positive is that which integrates, causes the experience of connection, allows you to realize you are always connected, and creates an expansive awareness of consciousness. The idea, therefore, is that the concept of evil is simply an individual who becomes fixated in their intention to promote the idea of the negative mechanism as an actual intention. But the idea is that negative mechanisms are in and of themselves not value judged as evil. It is simply the idea of how things are utilized, because even positive mechanisms can be used in a negative way, and negative mechanisms can be used in a positive way. So it is simply the idea of the recognition of intention as to whether to align with the flow of positive creation or the receding energy of negative creation.
And so, why is it on this particular planet that such horrible things happen? And it seems like anything goes here. Anything can happen in the negative direction or the positive.
Again, from the soul's point of view, these are all opportunities to learn how to transform things in a way that teaches you more about who you are as an aspect and a projection of all that is. So giving you challenges to transform, giving you challenges to overcome, allowing you to learn to transform from negative to positive in your experiential reality, allows you to discover more about your own innate power as an expression and an extension of all that is. Without these challenges, you do not learn, you do not grow. I'm not saying you have to have them to the degree that you've had them, but the idea is they give you an opportunity to discover who you truly are in any number of given situations, whether they are positive or negative. It's just that the negative ones provide the challenge that allow you the opportunity to overcome things you don't prefer, to see if you can transform them, to see if you can exercise your power on earth, to see if you can remember that you are an aspect of all that is. It is given to you, it is in your hands to make that determination. The idea of all that is doesn't make that determination for you, other than the idea that it presents itself because of the neutral central point as approximately 51% positive and 49% negative. But it's up to you to determine which way you prefer to go, even when given a negative scenario that is operating negatively, mechanically speaking, energetically speaking. It is up to you to determine whether to feed the negative energy or feed the positive energy. That is your power, the freedom to choose, the freedom to be the unique aspect of all that is that you are. And without those challenges, you do not grow.
Is the fire and brimstone devil based on Kernanos represented in any other ET civilizations? And why would a group worship it as an archetype of God rather than as a typical benevolent version?
Kernanos is a nature spirit. And the idea is that on one level, it can function as an archetype, but it functions more as an archetype of nature itself. As an aspect of all that is, as an aspect of God, nature certainly is an archetype, and many aspects of nature can be represented as archetypes. But Kernanos is specifically about the idea of the, shall we say, shepherd of nature, the caretaker of nature, the caretaker of the nature spirits. And the idea that it has been perceived negatively is simply the idea of the result of more modernized interpretations that are fear-based, that have to do with your experience as a culture in the disconnection of yourself from nature, the lack of realization that you are nature, an expression of it. So fear-based beliefs have transformed the idea of the caretaker of nature into something negative for many people in their belief system doctrines.
Now, this question says, well, why did he allow his image to be altered to one of evil rather than having it remain one of nature?
Again, the question is asked from a misunderstood point of view. it is not up to Kerninos to decide how individuals may perceive him. Just as, why does anyone allow anyone else to perceive them negatively when that may not be the actual truth? So the idea is that you don't have the power to disallow. You can explain, you can share how it might not be that way, but another person still has the power to decide to treat you in a negative way. So it's not about the idea that Kerninos allows or doesn't allow that. All you have to do is look more closely in the deeper understanding of that particular being to understand that it doesn't have to be looked at negatively, that it can be understood from a positive point of view. But being a nature spirit, it does, like anything, contain the ability to reflect positive or negative attributes, depending upon how one decides to view it, what the perspective of the person viewing it has based on how they filter that perspective through their own positive or negative belief systems. So again, the idea is Kerninos has no more ability to allow or disallow anyone to perceive him in whatever way a person decides they're going to perceive him.
And in mythology, there are many stories of gods killing other gods. How does that relate to all that is? And is it true that once the supreme god was actually a goddess, but that she was destroyed by a male god?
These things are, again, more representative archetypally of the struggle within humanity to balance itself between the male and the female energies. Some of those stories, some of them, are representative of actual events between extraterrestrial beings that were connected to your Earth, especially considering the Anunnaki times. But most of that is simply the representation of the suppression of different energies that are not allowed to be balanced in your society, played out on an archetypal energy level in your consciousness.
And in the Holy Bible, there is an account of the deluge claiming God to be the cause. Aside from the idea that God is behind everything, can you tell us anything about what caused the deluge in a physical sense? Is it related to the asteroid belt? And if not, what is it that caused the asteroid belt?
Yes, the deluge that you're referring to is the result of an asteroidal impact in the Atlantic Ocean. Therefore, the breakup of the planet in the orbit now occupied by the asteroid belt that is usually referred to as Maldek or Marduk caused many different sized of debris of rocks and so on and so forth, many of which have struck your planet as well as other planets and caused extinctions to occur. So the idea of the deluge is simply a reference to the massive tsunami that occurred from the impact of an asteroid in the Atlantic Ocean that impacted the coasts of many places that border the Atlantic Ocean, including the idea of the submergence of Atlantis. The idea being that at that time, there was much strife and conflict that existed in the collective consciousness of the Atlantean civilization. Thus, the idea, again, sort of placed in stereotypical terminology of the idea of God causing the destruction, whereas it's simply a recognition that natural forces have consequences for choices that are made. So the negative energy of the Atlantean civilization in their attempt to conquer other civilizations, when they fell to hubris and forgot their balanced state, allowed them to experience the attraction of shifting to a parallel reality where their civilization was destroyed. So the idea is not so much to blame the idea on God as a causation, but simply the recognition that whatever it is you choose, especially collectively, will bring about your ability to navigate to a parallel version of Earth that will demonstrate the consequences of the energy that you're holding on to.
So given all the strife and conflict on the planet now, and like during World War II and World War I, how come nothing like that happened again?
It can, but you can avoid it. As we have said, the idea now exists that you are replaying many different scenarios from what you would call the past. You're replaying the Atlantean scenario. You're replaying the Orion scenario, attempting to transform negative to positive, darkness to light, so that you don't necessarily have to experience the same things that have been experienced in what you call your history. The idea, therefore, is you are being given opportunities to change your course, to make different choices, to experience consequences in a more positive light, but it's still in your hands and it's still up to you. Things like that could happen, although right now what you are experiencing is a potential lead up to it, with the different kinds of what you call disasters and epidemics and so on and so forth, droughts and famines and floods that are being played out on your planet are kind of like a preview of coming attractions if you stay on the course of destruction. But you still have time to turn it around. You still have time to shift in the direction, to navigate in the direction of more positive versions, of parallel versions of Earth. The choice is yours. So make a choice and incorporate that into your lives more effectively.